What if the God who created the material world was not the highest God? That is one of the most radical ideas found in certain Gnostic texts. In the secret book of John, beyond the creator of this world exists a higher, invisible source known as the MONAD. From the MONAD comes the divine realm of the Pleroma. But after Sophia disrupts that order, a powerful being called Yaldabaoth the Demiurge emerges and creates the material world, believing himself to be the highest God. Then something unexpected happens. When humanity is created, a divine element from the higher realm enters the human being, what is often described today as the divine spark. So according to this Gnostic story, we live in the world of the Demiurge, but something within us comes from a reality higher than him. So what is the MONAD? How did the Demiurge come into existence? And why did the Gnostics believe humanity had forgotten its true origin? To answer that, we have to go back to where everything begins, the MONAD. The MONAD, what existed before the universe? To understand this story, we first have to imagine something almost impossible to picture. Before humanity, before Earth, before the stars, even before the physical universe. According to the secret book of John, beyond everything that exists is an ultimate reality described as the invisible spirit, commonly discussed today through the concept of the MONAD. But the MONAD is not presented like the familiar image of a god with a physical form, sitting somewhere outside the universe and controlling everything inside it. The text describes this highest source as invisible, immeasurable, and ultimately beyond the ordinary categories human beings use to understand reality. Put simply, the MONAD is not another being inside the universe. In this Gnostic framework, it is the ultimate source from which reality originates. Imagine an endless ocean. The stars, worlds, and every form of existence are like waves appearing across its surface. The MONAD is not the first wave. It is not the largest wave. It is the ocean itself. That distinction matters because everything that follows depends on it. In this system, what comes after the MONAD does not appear as something completely disconnected from its source. Instead, reality unfolds through what is often called emanation, something like light radiating from a source. So the story does not begin with a god gathering material and constructing a universe. It begins with the one gradually expressing itself through different levels of divine reality. And the first expression to play a major role in this story has a name, Barbelo. From there, an entirely different realm begins to unfold, the Pleroma, the divine fullness. Barbelo and the Pleroma. How does the divine realm emerge from the MONAD? If the MONAD is the source of everything, the next question is obvious. How does a single ultimate reality become a divine realm filled with different beings? According to the secret book of John, the first major expression associated with the invisible spirit is Barbelo, described as the first thought. But Barbelo should not simply be imagined as a second god created after the MONAD. Within this Gnostic story, Barbelo is better understood as an expression of the highest source itself, like light radiating from the sun. The light can travel far from what appears to be its origin, but it still depends on that source. From this divine reality emerge other beings known as Aeons. The Aeons are not simply a collection of separate gods. They are often associated with qualities or dimensions of divine reality. Ideas connected with life, truth, wisdom, understanding, and other aspects of the divine order. Together, this higher realm is known as the Pleroma, a word meaning fullness. If our physical world is defined by limitation, change, decay, and loss, the Pleroma is imagined almost as its opposite, a state of divine completeness in which these beings exist in harmony with their source. At this point, there is no Demiurge, no Archons, no material world, no humanity, and most importantly, the separation that will define the rest of the story has not yet occurred. But within the Pleroma, something happens that changes everything. An Aeon named Sophia, whose name means wisdom, acts in a way that disrupts the existing order, and here lies the great irony. In this story, it is an action by wisdom herself that leads to the birth of a being who does not understand his own origin. His name is Yaldabaoth. Sophia, the act that led to the birth of the Demiurge. Sophia is one of the eons within the Pleroma. And with her, the story takes a dramatic turn. According to the secret book of John, Sophia attempts to bring forth something from herself without following the established order of the Pleroma. What emerges is unlike the aeons that came before. Yaldabaoth. Sophia recognizes the imperfection of what has appeared and hides him away from the higher divine realm. As a result, Yaldabaoth exists without fully understanding where he came from, but he has power. From Yaldabaoth come other ruling powers commonly known as the Archons, and a lower cosmic order begins to take shape. The crucial point is that Yaldabaoth does not recognize the MONAD or the Pleroma above him, so he believes that he is the highest being. Within this Gnostic narrative, Yaldabaoth becomes the figure commonly identified as the Demiurge, the maker and ruler of the material world. This creates one of the sharpest differences between this Gnostic cosmology and mainstream Christianity. In Christian theology, the creator of the universe is the supreme God, but in this Gnostic system, the maker of the material world is a lower being powerful, but ignorant of the higher reality above him. And from that ignorance, the world humanity knows begins to take shape. But the Demiurge is about to make an even greater mistake. Because when he and the Archons create humanity, they do not simply produce another creature of the material world. Something higher enters the human being. Humanity. Why do we carry a divine spark? After establishing his world, Yaldabaoth and the Archons turn toward something more ambitious: humanity. According to the secret book of John, they form Adam. But there is a problem. The body does not truly live. This is where the story takes another unexpected turn. Sophia seeks to recover the power that has passed into Yaldabaoth. Through a plan involving the higher divine powers, Yaldabaoth is induced to breathe his power into Adam. He does, and Adam comes alive. But Yaldabaoth does not realize that what has entered humanity ultimately comes from a reality higher than himself. This creates one of the central paradoxes of Gnostic interpretations of the human condition. The human body belongs to the material world, yet something within humanity comes from the higher divine realm. Today, this idea is often described as the divine spark, and within the story, this is what makes humanity dangerous to the rulers who helped form it. Adam is no longer simply another creature in the Demiurge's world. After receiving this power, he possesses something the Archons themselves cannot fully control, and that frightens them. So the human problem is not merely that we are limited by physical bodies, it is that we do not know what we carry within ourselves. This is where Gnosis becomes essential, because in this worldview, salvation is not only about escaping an imperfect world. First, humanity must recognize what it is and where it came from. But if that knowledge matters so much, why was it forgotten? The Gnostic story points toward the very powers that feared what Adam had become, the Archons. The Archons. What makes humanity forget its origin? If humanity carries something from a higher reality, why don't we recognize it? This is where the Archons take on a deeper role. In some Gnostic texts, they are not merely cosmic rulers associated with the Demiurge. They also represent powers that keep humanity bound to the material order and unaware of its higher origin, and they do not necessarily need to destroy the divine spark. They only need humanity to forget that it is there. From this perspective, a person can spend an entire lifetime building an identity, pursuing status, money, success, or recognition, without ever asking a deeper question. If all of those things disappeared, what would still remain of me? This is where an ancient cosmological story begins to feel surprisingly personal. Our names, careers, achievements, failures, memories, and fears all shape who we become. But if we believe those things are the entirety of who we are, they can also become boundaries. In this modern interpretive sense, the prison is not necessarily only the material world. It can also be the state of never realizing that our understanding of ourselves may be incomplete. Within the logic of the myth, the Archons may rule the Demiurge's world, but they cannot completely erase the divine element within humanity. They can only keep humanity from recognizing it. So the path out does not begin with physical power. It begins with awareness. The Gnostics called that recognition Gnosis. But Gnosis is not simply learning a secret. It is the difference between believing something and recognizing it for yourself. Gnosis. If humanity forgot, what must we remember? This is where the entire story begins to turn inward. We have traveled from the MONAD to the Pleroma, from Sophia to the Demiurge, and from the Archons to humanity. But all of it eventually leads to one question. What happens if the real human problem is that we have forgotten our origin? The Gnostic answer is Gnosis. The word is often translated as knowledge, but simply collecting information misses the point. You can read about the MONAD, you can memorize the story of Sophia and Yaldabaoth, you can understand the concept of the divine spark. But intellectual knowledge alone is not necessarily what these traditions mean by Gnosis. Gnosis is closer to direct recognition, the difference between reading about fire and actually feeling its heat. This is why a saying from the Gospel of Thomas is often brought into discussions of this idea. If you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. The saying can be interpreted in different ways, but within this broader Gnostic reading, what must be discovered is not located entirely somewhere outside the human being. It concerns something already present, but not yet recognized. If humanity's problem is forgetting where it came from, Gnosis becomes the breaking of that forgetfulness. Not becoming something entirely new, but recognizing what was there from the beginning. And this leads to another striking idea found within the Nag Hammadi writings. Because if Gnosis can happen while we are alive, perhaps resurrection does not have to begin after death. Resurrection. What if returning begins before death? When most people hear the word resurrection, they think of something that happens after death. But the Gospel of Philip, preserved among the Nag Hammadi writings, points toward a different idea. Resurrection must, in some sense, be experienced while we are still alive. Placed beside Gnosis, the idea becomes clearer. In a Gnostic reading, humanity lives in the material world without recognizing its deeper origin. So death can represent more than physical death. It can also describe a state of ignorance. In that sense, resurrection becomes an awakening. The world does not disappear, the body remains. What changes is how a person understands who they are. And this brings the story back to the beginning, the MONAD. If humanity carries something originating from a higher reality, then returning to the MONAD may not simply mean traveling somewhere after death. It can also mean recognizing the origin that was forgotten. The story forms a circle, from unity to separation, from separation to forgetfulness, and from forgetfulness back to recognition. Perhaps that is the deeper question behind the MONAD. If everything you believe defines you disappeared, what would still remain? From the MONAD and the Pleroma to Sophia, the Demiurge, the Archons, and finally humanity, Gnostic thought tells a story of movement from a divine source into the material world. But the heart of that story is Gnosis, the recognition of humanity's deeper origin and identity. Whether we see these writings as an ancient religious system or as one of humanity's attempts to understand existence, the question they leave behind remains powerful. Who are we really? And is what we know about ourselves the whole story? If you enjoy exploring Gnosticism, Nag Hammadi, and the mysteries of religious history, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video as we continue uncovering the ancient ideas that still raise questions today.